can we instill in our lives, in our families, bravery, character, and leadership? That's the topic we're going to be addressing today on Flourish-Meant during this special Veterans Day weekend episode with special guest, Dr. Jennifer London. She maintains leadership roles in a number of organizations. She is leading a major effort in educating and empowering Americans to be active citizens through greater understanding of our nation's early history. Dr. London has numerous professional publications to her credit, including Ever Vigilant, Leadership and Legacy by the Executive Chairman of CACI. And she co-authored that with Dr. J. Philip London. So I am excited to have you here today, Dr. London. Welcome to Flourish-Meant.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I'm so honored to be able to talk about veterans today who deserve considerable honor from us. And this is why this day is set aside to honor the veterans, people that served in our military. And I might mention, you mentioned our books. My husband, Dr. J. Philip London, was a Naval Academy graduate. He was an aviator in the Navy, served in the Cuban Missile Crisis blockade. He was a helicopter pilot, and also on the recovery team for John Glenn's orbital trip around the Earth. So he was a little part of history, or I should say a big part of history. And he retired as a captain and then went to work for a consulting firm called CACI. And he grew it over 50 years to a $5.6 billion company, which is traded on the New York Stock Exchange, 23,000 employees around the world. And 155 locations. And the company has done has supported a lot of critical national security work for our government. Jack was a true patriot. He was very proud of his service. And his entire life, he was loyal to the oath he took as a military officer to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. He did 12 years of active duty and 12 years of reserve, and was very proud of his affiliation with the military. He talks about it in his book, Ever Vigilant, Leadership and Legacy by the Executive Chairman of CACI. And he supported character and integrity and honesty. And in 2013, wrote a book called Character, the Ultimate Success Factor. And to stress the importance of ethics in business, because he saw some businesses that weren't standing by their ethics and integrity. And so he wrote that book and more recently, Profiles in Character, which is 16 Americans and the traits that define them. These are true historic heroes. And so as a veteran, my husband also supported in his company the hiring of veterans. In 2005, he created a program for CACI to hire veterans. And by 2018, 47% of their new hires were veterans. It's a program that continues in the company. Many of those veterans are wounded veterans as well, disabled veterans. And so in addition to that, we have supported programs even at the educational level, like at the Naval Academy. We support scholarship programs, awards programs for leadership in military history. And in fact, the proceeds of our books go to military affiliated organizations, all the proceeds of our books. So I'm just so thrilled to be here to honor our veterans and to recognize that about 7% of our population are veterans, 1.8 million people in our country. And it's so important for us to, I think, do more than say, thank you for our service. I think, that's important, but I think it's also important to ask the veterans, what can we do to support, organizations or things that are important to them, to really take a more active role in their life and recognizing what they have done for our country.
Yes, it's so important to support our veterans organizations. And that is one way that we can be paying attention to what veterans are modeling for us, for our families, for our own lives, for our character, is making sure that we're supporting them. So if we keep that in front of us and we're supporting our veterans, we can then begin to instill those values of bravery, character, and leadership. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely. And I think again, we felt it started at a younger age when during the educational phase, which is why we created these programs to provide awards. I mean, we sponsored programs at the Naval Academy, as I mentioned, in leadership and history, naval history, but also the U.S. Naval Institute, which puts out publications geared specifically to the Navy. And so we sponsored 2 programs there. I might mention my husband passed away 2 years ago, but I have published his books, Leadership and Legacy, as well as Profiles in Character. And he was buried with full military honors at the Arlington National Cemetery here in Washington. And our 3 sons and I visit that cemetery regularly on Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And so, as you know, Memorial Day was set aside to mourn and to recognize and honor those who died in serving our country. Veterans Day is set aside for our veterans. And so, if I might just kind of segue into our current active duty and understanding that 1%, less than 1% of our population are serving around the world and protecting our freedoms as well as freedoms of those around the world. And it's a small percentage that doesn't always get recognized. That's about 1.4 million people that are in active duty. And it's heartbreaking to look at the suicide rate among both veterans and active duty. It's at about 22 individuals per day that are committing suicide, either veterans or active duty. And a large percentage are veterans. And part of that is because of difficulty adjusting to civilian life. It's PTSD, it's depression. And so I think we have an obligation to support our veterans. As I mentioned, my husband created a program for hiring veterans, but there are Wounded Warrior projects. I would encourage listeners to go to the internet and search programs, any Wounded Warrior project, and to do what they can to support those programs. Because, the suicide rate is about a suicide every 65 minutes. If you can, wrap your head around that, that's significant. It's much higher than in the general population. And it's because of the difficulty that our veterans have experienced and our active duty are experiencing.
So when we're talking about bravery, character, and leadership here today, we're not saying that those things come without cost or that they come in the absence of fear and terror and suffering. So these things could sometimes go together. If you recognize someone that you know in your family or in your community or in your church is exhibiting withdrawal or other symptoms that might put them at risk for harming themselves or even ending their life, what is something that you can immediately do to show your support, to give them resources to help them to get the professional assistance that they need?
Well, again, I think you really just approaching someone and offering the fact that you're interested in them without embarrassing them, and again, pointing them in the direction of programs. I mean, the Veterans Administration has done a better job in recent years of offering more services to veterans. It's not perfect, it's not great, but it's improved. There are flagship hospitals now that veterans can go to for treatment and service. Some people might not even be aware, without having not gone to the VA, what kind of benefits they might be entitled to. And I have a brother who's 78 years old and served in active duty during Vietnam, was discharged from a disability, never collected disability. And so, he wasn't even aware that there are opportunities out there for veterans. And some programs, like there are mortgages, there are, loans, and just a number of programs that veterans can look into that help them either reduce their mortgage, get a reduced loan, and again, just from a medical standpoint, going to hospitals, finding the right person or the right team to get the kind of treatment they need. So if anyone recognizes someone that might be struggling, I think just approaching them and offering a helping hand, and then if they are receptive, putting them in touch with various programs. I think the military does try to reach out now and make active duty and veterans aware that there are programs out there. But I think, again, we all have a bit of a duty to step up, because they have done an amazing job in protecting our freedoms every day.
For individuals listening or watching, or for their families, how can they access your resources to be more educated about how to be supportive to active duty or veterans in our communities, and to educate their families about bravery, character, and leadership ongoing from the modeling that these wonderful heroes of our society have done for us?
Well, I am on the board of the Navy League and the foundation of the Navy League as well. And those are more related to making people aware of our sea service veterans and active duty. The foundation actually is directed toward actually scholarship programs for the children or spouses of those who have been in the sea service. And again, as far as, and if I can just mention something about the Navy League Foundation, last year we got 200 applications for scholarships. This year we got 400. So you can only imagine how many people are seeking support and getting in for their higher education. So I would encourage anybody interested in supporting our scholarship program. They can go to the website for the U.S. Naval, the United States Navy League. I don't have any direct relationship with the medical facilities out there, but again, going online, searching up Wounded Warrior projects or Veterans Administration is another way to access those that support. The USO certainly has wide-reaching capacity. For each of the books, there are separate websites. For Evervigilant, it's evervigilantthebook.com, and for Profiles in Character, it's the same. It's sort of the same. Profiles in Character, thebook.com. And there's a lot of information, interviews, and more summaries on there. Both books can be ordered on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. There are different versions. There are paperback, and there are the regular hard copy books. And Profiles in Character is a great coffee table book. My husband wanted it to be sort of a coffee table size so that it could be utilized in that way. So, and I must mention that all proceeds, I think I mentioned already, but all proceeds from those books go to military organizations.
I hope that all of you listening were inspired by this conversation with Dr. Jennifer London, and you will go and access these wonderful resources and support your local veterans and local veterans organizations as well. And of course, I also hope that you hit subscribe and come back for the next episode of Flourish-Meant. Flourish-Meant is part of the Spark Media Network and can be found on the Edify app.